Does the female orgasm tax the kidney essence as well? They can get this over sexual desire, and I've seen that in some patients before where they've had such poor sleep, such bad sleep, that that led to this unusual desire that can't be quenched, that can't be sort of satisfied. Does it tax women as well? That is a question that's been asked on the channel on a video I did about joy and pleasure and the fire element, and today we're going to be answering a subscriber's question. So before we get into the video, I want to welcome you back to the channel. I'm Hopkinson. I'm a herbalist and an acupuncturist. I've been doing Chinese medicine for over 22 years. I teach Chinese medicine, and I love to help people to discover the wonders of acupuncture and Chinese medicine, to answer questions that you might have from your treatment process, to understand what is this, what is that, what is dampness, what is spleen qi, all the rest of it. So if you've got a question, you can put that in the comments below, and I'll do my best to answer it as best as I can. I also consult with people worldwide through Zoom, so you can book a call with me, book an appointment with me if that's something that you'd like to do. And you can also support the channel by purchasing a course from me. I have a new course called Self-Care with the 5 Elements, and that's going to teach you how to learn more about Chinese medicine in a self-care way, things you can actually apply to yourself. It's a really good value course. It's a low-cost course, and you can make it available to yourself by supporting yourself and supporting the channel at the same time. So let's get into this question. It's a bit of a raunchy one, I guess. Orgasms. And how do they tax women as much as they tax men in Chinese medicine? So there are fundamental differences between what taxes males and females in Chinese medicine because of different biological things that go on. So we can kind of talk a little bit about that maybe towards the end. If you've been around this idea in Chinese medicine, you would come across this idea that if you ejaculate for a male, you're going to tax the essence. And this is where longevity practices get into the idea of like holding in and not ejaculating, not masturbating, and keeping that essence in, right? So that sperm is the actual physical essence. That's the idea. Now, this is much more of a TCM idea than a classical Chinese medicine idea. There's definitely similarities, but it's just where they talk about where these things go and how it plays out in the end is kind of the same, right? So the self-treatment, the self-care that you need to do for this is the same, just different perspectives of looking at the same things. So we might just want to understand a little bit about this male and female physiology to kind of understand where does it tax us. So the answer to the question is yes, it does tax you. Possibly not as greatly for a female to have an orgasm than it does for a male, because a female is not releasing that ejaculate, right? You could argue that because of an orgasm, there's physiological responses that happen down there. I'm just trying to be a bit careful because I don't want this video to be too graphic and be flagged by YouTube. It is a health educational thing. I'm not trying to be... I don't know. I try to make things a bit humorous to lighten the load, no pun intended. But anyway, let's just get on with the video, I guess. So because something physical is being released for a male, there's probably more an understanding that that's more taxing for men to ejaculate. And again, this is kind of more of a generalization that men tend to have a more desire to ejaculate or desire to have an orgasm more than women do. Now, this could be, is it just societal, like that we think that's the case? And, maybe women do more masturbation than men. Maybe they do, or, or I'm sure we all remember the Seinfeld episode where I'm out. Thought Elaine was going to be out. Last a lot longer than she did in the contest, right? But it wasn't the case. So there's two parts to the taxation, right? One is that physical taxation. So women are physically taxed in the bedroom area by having babies and by having a menstrual cycle. Men don't have that. So they're not physically creating a substance there that's a physical baby or physical lining of the uterus every month that's kind of so that taxes women in the blood area a lot more, like as in women get more blood deficient, and this is, if you've been around Chinese medicine at all, you will know this saying, women get blood deficient, men get qi or yang deficient. So there's some truth to that, but there's also some not so much truth to that, because both of those two things end up making you yang deficient anyway, especially if you think about this in a classical Chinese medicine sense. So in a classical Chinese medicine sense, we think blood holds the yang because it's warm blood. So if you get blood deficient, you're going to eventually get yang deficient. Well, you are going to get yang deficient by getting blood deficient. Like TCM doesn't think that. I think they probably do, but they don't acknowledge it. They don't state it in the text. But when you think about it, you're like, that fully makes sense. But you're told in TCM school, like, oh, blood is yin, so it's, blood is a liquid, so it's yin. And that's true, but it's not cold, dead blood, it's warm, yang-filled blood. So either way, both are going to become yang deficient by these mechanisms. Now, the other aspect to orgasm is the stimulation of the pericardium and eventually the heart. Now, in TCM, they call this heart fire. We don't have that idea in classical Chinese medicine because you sort of can't have that. It's beyond the scope of this video to talk about that. But this idea of too much stimulation, this overstimulation, and what that would happen is the pericardium is the sac around the heart physically, but in Chinese medicine it's like the organ that gets disturbed before the heart. You wouldn't want the heart to be disturbed, right? So when someone has a lack of desire, that's coldness in the pericardium, right? Whereas too much desire is sort of like warmness or too much fire, and that sort of drying it out of the pericardium. So overstimulation, where it can't be nourished by, it's wanting that nourishment, but it can't be nourished. How do we get that nourishment? Sleep is one of the ways. So often this kind of pattern for women can be worse if they're blood deficient. They can get this over sexual desire, and I've seen that in some patients before where they've had such poor sleep, such bad sleep, that that led to this unusual desire that can't be quenched, that can't be sort of satisfied. And the way to treat that is to help. You need to nourish blood to help the sleep, right, to sort of stop that desire. So you need a healthy amount of desire. You don't want no desire. And by desire, it's not just sexual desire, but sometimes this can be desire for things in life, like desire for yourself to, better yourself, to do something. In the 5 elements, we have wood, fire, earth, metal, water. So wood generates fire. So for some people, they have a lack of desire and a lack of ability to get an orgasm, a lack of desire even to go into the bedroom, to go and do those things, to have any sexual desire, because there's a lack of wood to generate fire. That can be part of it. But if there's too much wood, it could generate too much fire. And then there's this insatiable desire. And is that bad? That's in the essence of this question. Yes, any of these things is bad. But it's going to tax you, because it's like there's this urge to have an orgasm but it's not, it doesn't satisfy that thing. It's still perpetuating, and then there's another, like it's not going to be resolved if there's that perpetual generation of too much fire. Having an orgasm and releasing that isn't going to necessarily end in I don't have that desire anymore, I've been satisfied. It doesn't do that. So if that's the case, then the treatment has to be to nourish the blood, to stop it from drying out. Otherwise that person's going to have an insatiable desire that almost never ends. Now it will end eventually, because the person's body will get so depleted that there isn't any more ability to generate that fire, so it'll sort of peter out and cycle back down. And this can happen it can happen in a sexual way, but it can happen in a non-sexual way for people who get a mental illness type of a pattern. Mania and depression can also have this sort of same cycling of events. And you do see this with some people who have some types of mental health conditions where they get a manic part of the thing, and part of that mania is an over-sexualization. To answer your question, does it tax women? Yes, it does. Does that mean you should never do that? No, because your life would be boring, probably, and it wouldn't be fun. But everything should be in moderation, and also these things should be in moderation based around your age. So there's sort of, the older you are, the less you should do this, because you've got less resource to give. Another thing that makes this worse, way worse, is doing these things whilst under the influence of alcohol. So when you've got alcohol in your system, you've already got yang that's kind of being wasted. It's being floating out, and then there's, it says in the Neijing, something like, don't enter the bedroom chamber drunk. Like, it's, don't do that. So what that means is, it doesn't mean don't go to bed when you're drunk. It means don't have sex, when you're drunk, because you're going to waste more things, and it's waste more yang, waste more essence, waste more resource. And it's the same thing for lots of stuff when you're drunk. Like if people are over the limit, or they're drunk, they have less restraint. Like, I don't know if you've ever had too much alcohol and then you've eaten the wrong foods, and you're like, oh, I'd never eat those things, and you're like, oh, well, we were pissed as a fart, so I can't eat all these things that I normally wouldn't eat. And you ravage through the cupboard looking for little snacks that, and then you wake up in the morning and you're not just hungover from the alcohol, but you're like, oh, I feel yucky because I ate all that stuff I shouldn't have eaten. Or you made some, a worst case scenario, you make some bad decisions that you weren't in your right mind, right? So that's good advice for for lots of things, but that the alcohol increases the chances of you wasting more yang than you normally would. So being in the habit of these things is not great. So being in the habit of getting drunk and having sex regularly is not great for you. It's not. It's less healthy. If you're in a relationship, sexual health is important. So you can't just sort of withhold that and expect your partner to, still be there, because that's part of the relationship, right? So you can't sort of think, well, I'm never going to orgasm because that's the most healthiest thing, unless you decide that's the path you want to take. And that's what some monks do, and that's what some practices of even Qigong, Tai Chi kind of promote in terms of the highest level of monkhood, I guess, or that's not really my area, but I do know about that, right? So there's a whole nother area of Chinese medicine. We won't get into that on this channel, but that's that idea of keeping that qi in, keeping that yang in, right, and storing the yang. And this idea of, can you store prenatal essence? So if you're a TCM student, you'll know what I mean by that. If not, don't worry about that. So the answer to this is, yeah, you can. You will be taxed. I think you'll probably be taxed slightly less than males. If the desire was equal for both male and female having an orgasm, I think it would still tax males more than females because of the sperm that's coming out. So the idea is, like, every time sperm comes out, well, more sperm's needing to be produced. So that you've wasted some kind of resource that was precious there. Yeah. So that's the idea. Hopefully this video has been useful and helpful to you, and make sure you try to support the channel by at least subscribing. If you're not a subscriber, make sure you click that subscribe button. Trying to get to 10,000 subscribers this year. I'd love to see that. I'd love to get 100,000 and get one of those little plaques. I mean, if that could happen, that'd be awesome. So appreciate your support on the channel, and look forward to answering your questions soon. So pop your questions in the comments.